Hi everybody, again I'm Mandy de Wilde. I'm a fellow at ISSTI, of which Steve is the director, and I work at the University of Amsterdam almost as well. So my title is Mitigating Climate Change, Marketizing Trust on Not Maintaining Judgement Devices in the Dutch Energy Retrofit Sector. So in the Netherlands, as in many Western European countries, mitigating climate change is framed as an opportunity for market-driven innovation. Our Prime Minister, let's see if this works. Robin, did you?
Oh, it's being naughty.
So I just...
Oh,
no,
you've got
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, back.
Okay, so just this one. Well, thanks everyone for waiting. So our Prime Minister sings the praise of innovation in an age of climate change, basically wherever he goes. This is from last year, in which he says, setting our sights higher will encourage innovation and bring us closer to a low-energy, sustainable, circular economy. Now, mitigating climate change by means of market-driven innovation is, of course, a popular trend, but energy-related products are actually quite difficult to marketize, which should make us sensitive to something else, and that is the limits of plasticity in energy market experiments, which has been put forward by Jane Webb and David Hockey in their article on assembling a market for sustainable energy on heat network infrastructures here in the UK, which is a good article. I can definitely recommend it. So in this presentation, I want to focus on market-driven innovation in the Netherlands, in the Dutch energy retrofit sector. And notably, this innovation is driven and it's facilitated by energy policies which seek to decrease the residential energy consumption in the Netherlands, which contributes to over 10% of the annual CO2 emissions, which is actually quite a lot. However, persuading private homeowners in their role as consumers in order for them to purchase and to adopt energy retrofit products, and when I talk about energy retrofit products, I mean simple products like insulation measures, solar panels, heat pumps, those type of things. So if you want to persuade private homeowners to actually buy those things, that actually remains a very difficult challenge. And why is that a challenge? Well, that is mainly a challenge because these type of products are quite unique, which makes valuing them actually extremely difficult. So these products are characterized by three conditions. This is that they are multidimensional, so there are many aspects to them. There is quality uncertainty. So, for instance, if you would be interested in buying solar panels, there are a lot of different types of panels on the market, or a different type of inverters, solar inverters on the market, and you wouldn't necessarily know what type of product or material is the best. You would need some professional expertise in guiding you through that process. So there is quality uncertainty. And lastly, these type of products are very difficult to compare. So if you, for instance, to give another example, would be interested in floor insulation, you might go for Perfoam, you might go for Droa chips, and you might go for EPS pearls. I mean, there are different types of materials and products that you can actually buy and use, and they vary in price and quality again. So this makes them singular goods, and this is a notion coined by Lucien Karpik. And this opacity makes it difficult for homeowners actually to navigate and to evaluate and to judge their options. As Karpik says about singular goods, when products are singularities, when the actors give more weight to qualities than to price, choice takes the form of judgment. So Karpik's economics of singularities is founded on the act of judgment, and that implies the active weighing of knowledge from trusted sources. So judgment and trust become connected in this process. And the importance of the concept of trust therefore lies in its potential to actually explain how coordination between market actors is actually possible when uncertainty about the qualities of the products is high. So to continue with Karpik, because the notion of singular goods comes with its twin concept of judgment devices. And Karpik argues that for markets for singular goods to be sustainable, so for markets actually to function long term, consumers must employ one or several judgment devices to help them in their search for the right product. And he says, judgment devices dissipate the opacity of the market. They act as guideposts for individual and for collective action. And they are part of the diversified range of practices that combine, among others, teaching, persuasion, and seduction. So, thinking with judgment devices, I think, offers an opportunity to understand how economic exchange might be possible and how it might be sustained for a market for energy retrofit products. At least that's my idea or what I'm trying to do. So judgment devices is, of course, a concept. If you want to apply it to something, what can you apply it to? Well, I applied it to customer journeys. And customer journeys are used in the Dutch energy, have been used and are still used in the Dutch energy retrofit sector as an innovative service. And they are developed by startup companies. They are initiated, facilitated, and regulated by municipalities and energy grid operators. So there is a public-private twist there as well. Perhaps most of you know, but customer journeys are not that innovative in other fields. For instance, in marketing studies, they are actually quite common, and they have originated in marketing studies. And there it refers to the process of planning people, infrastructure, communication, and material components of a service with the aim of creating emotional connections between consumers and products. So I especially find it interesting, this idea of creating emotional connections. In terms of economic sociology, you, for instance, say it is about attachment, of attaching consumers and products to each other. So each customer journey, at least in the energy retrofit sector in the Netherlands, takes the form of 7 touch points. And during these touch points, homeowners engage with these service representatives. So it might mean that they engage with, for instance, professionals. It might mean that they would engage with professionals from installation firms, installation companies, people who provide information from municipalities or energy corporations. So there are different supply chain actors that homeowners actually engage with during these touch points. This is an example here of a case study that I will go into a little bit later. And what you see here is the first step actually tries to sensitize homeowners, telling them, well, are you actually paying too much for your energy? Do you have a high energy bill? The second step actually then tells you, well, if you do, here are a number of ways that you can actually reduce your energy bill. And then the third step, they try to help you in finding the right contractor. So this is a list of contractors. They can give you quotes. If you are soliciting quotes, what should you pay attention to? And then there is the step of actually installing the product. So of course you have to install installation product or a solar panels system, which is a lot of work actually. So that is also another step in which they assist you. And then there is the step of, after it has been installed, is it actually well installed? How has it been done? Are you satisfied? Those type of questions. And then the seventh step is, well, if you are very satisfied, or if you're not, tell us, but if you are very satisfied, please share your experience with your neighbors, with us, so that more people will in the end, retrofit their homes. So Dutch energy policies as I said, experimented with customer journeys as an integral solution for servicing homeowners in embedded economic exchange. And in the Energy Agreement for Sustainable Growth in 2013, they were also mentioned as very important, quite important to actually changing the energy retrofit sector and making it more customer friendly. So going back to the notion of trust, despite trust being lauded as an important feature of economic exchange, the question of how trust is actually established, and what I find even more important and more interesting, how trust is maintained, is a strikingly understudied topic within the new economic sociology, for instance. And this is rather surprising, as in their influential research program for the study of markets and processes of economization, Kalishka and Calon argue that trust should actually be studied as part of the emergence of markets, as well as the maintenance of markets. And they argue, and I quote, "We should not, however, forget the regular functioning of markets and the ongoing work of maintenance that this actually requires. Maintenance includes many operations that still need to be identified and studied." So to Kalishka and Calon, trust can never be carried out as a coordinated project on a wide scale without the aid of all types of social material arrangements. And such social material arrangement, which are configured in devices, in market devices, which are these customer journeys, should rather be unpacked empirically in order to study market maintenance. So I have taken that assignment to heart and have done organizational ethnography over the course of 2 years of the attempt in the Netherlands to actually design, organize, and upscale these customer journeys. This was an organizational ethnography of 3 customer journeys and 3 startups, but for the sake of time, I will only focus on one in this talk. So, following Kalishka and Calon, I will demonstrate, I hope, in this talk, the very delicate work involved in establishing and maintaining these social material arrangements that, in the end, make economic exchange possible, and thus make it possible for a market to exist. And I do so by unpacking this customer journey design, and that is this one. The customer journey that I will focus on was designed to be offered as a service to 45 cities in the Netherlands. And it was designed by a startup which received funding through local and provincial governmental procurements, but also some seed money from local governments as well in the beginning. When asked about the role of this particular startup in the energy retrofit sector, a startup employee explained it as such, and I quote, "We educate homeowners to become critical consumers, which have to sort things out with the market. We do not want to subsume the market, but we do want the market to fulfill its tasks properly." Essential to the business case of this particular startup was the design of this customer journey that would run, in their words, as automatically as possible so as to offer local and, more importantly, cost-effective solutions in order to trigger homeowners to purchase energy retrofit products. So to that end, a comprehensive digital informative platform with all kinds of digital tools, a whole list with certified companies, pre-selected certified companies was developed, as well as an automatic reply system. And you see an example of the design of the digital platform here on the right. So, for instance, the digital tools that they made use of was the Sun Atlas. Perhaps you also have it here in the UK, I'm not quite sure actually. But it's an atlas, a Sun Atlas that is developed by the Environmental Knowledge Institute in the Netherlands, which gives you an accurate indication of the suitability of, for instance, your roof for solar energy generation. And this tool, for instance, was integrated into the design of the digital platform to inform consumers. However, that was not the only thing that they did, of course. More importantly, they also developed their own digital tools, such as an energy performance check of dwellings. And they did that by using and by linking different publicly available digital data sets. So they made use of land registry office data, municipal personal records database, and also data on neighborhood compositions in terms of what is the socioeconomic background in this particular neighborhood, what is the, because then you would know which people to target, because if it was a neighborhood with people living there with a certain income or with a certain higher education, you would know that they would have money to actually retrofit their homes. But they would also target neighborhoods from which they, for instance, knew they would look at architectural information, for instance, if they knew that this was a particular neighborhood with dwellings built between 1960 and 1972, they would specifically know that in this particular neighborhood there would be cavity walls, and that was very good because that means that you could target people specifically for cavity wall insulation. If dwellings had been built after 72, they would know that cavity wall insulation had already been part of the actual construction of the dwelling. So you should not target those neighborhoods for those particular products. So they made use of all these type of different data and put them together for these digital tools to inform consumers. So a startup employee developer explained that these data sets help to provide what they termed accurate advice without having to undertake costly technical inspections of dwellings. This was quite important because normally what you do, one of the first things that you do if you would like to have, for instance, floor insulation, if you're interested, you would have someone come over and do a technical inspection of your house. But this was something that the startup actually did not want to provide because it was cost intensive. So, as the startup employee said, the idea is that on the basis of this data and the information provided by the homeowner via the digital platform, our knowledge of the dwelling is such that we don't need to do a technical inspection to provide an advice. Our hope is that the more accurate the tool, the more accurate the advice we can give at a distance, and the more homeowners will be inclined to trust us. So this idea of wanting to establish trust, but wanting to do it at a distance, I think is quite interesting. Now, of course, work in STS on standards and processes of standardization have already demonstrated that certified tools, such as quality marks and regulatory mechanisms, exemplify objectivity. So objectivity here then refers to compliances with impersonal rules and calculations in order to exclude bias and personal preferences. For instance, the work of, Bowker and Starr and Porter. Of course, we also know, of course, that those are constructions, but to consumers, they have this perceived objective nature. So these certified tools embody a kind of impersonal mode of trust, is what Timmermans and Epstein have argued in their article. So certified tools are usually supported, of course, by governmental bodies or independent non-governmental bodies, such as accredited trade associations, and come in the form of energy performance norms for Dutch buildings, quality labels for certified contractors and products, or quality assurance systems. So they come in many forms. But the interesting thing is, and this is of course something that I'm mostly interested in, is that these certified tools allow homeowners to determine, for instance, the value of a product without direct mediation by professionals. And this was, of course, also something that the startup was very interested in. However, another startup employees attested, of course, to the importance of these impersonal mediators of trust, but actually he argued that in kind of experimenting with the customer journey and in designing and kind of tinkering with the customer journey, they had noticed that to consumers, these certified tools lost relevance due to their omnipresence in the energy retrofit industry. And I quote, "So due to the process of accreditation, quality marks and certificates are highly reliable in itself. yet they now abound through the supply chain, which means that for customers it is unclear what they actually stand for and what their value actually is. If a certified contractor works with Perfoam, an insulation product which has a very bad reputation nowadays due to health issues, is that contractor still to be trusted? Now that is of course a very good question. So one of the things that was part of the customer journey was that they included a pre-selected list of what they called trustworthy companies who were all legally certified by accredited trade organizations. And in an attempt to make these tools more helpful to homeowners, the intermediary started to embed them in a newly developed performance review system, which was, in the words of one employee, comparable to Booking.com. So what they actually wanted to do was kind of flatten this review system, to introduce the review system to flatten all the nuances and complexes in trying to figure out which tool to use and which one not, or which one was reliable and which one not. Which I thought was quite interesting because they asked homeowners who had made use already of their customer journey and purchased, for instance, floor insulation, and they gave them a customer satisfaction form which they had to fill in. And these were just very simple questions like, did they vacuum clean your house when they left? Were they respectful of you? So it was very much targeted as customer satisfaction and not so much had professional expertise or technical expertise or those type of things. And a startup employee explained that the review system was then used to rank providers on the platform that they had on the basis of this subjective customer experience. And he said, we continue working only with certified companies, but which of these companies appears first on a digital platform is dependent on the quality of their services, the services that they have provided to previous customers. Those customers can now rate their services through a rating system. Basically, the algorithm, which they had put in place, decides which company will appear at the top of our list of companies visible on the platform. So it ensures that we do not have to make a choice. Instead, the quality of their service is leading. So due to its transparency, the review system would actually ensure accredited trade organizations the opportunity to monitor the quality of the services offered by all kinds of companies, of installation firms and installation companies. However, as this review system had been outsourced to consumers, it intervened with the accuracy of their official certifications of contractors and products. So it intervened with their ways of assessing what quality actually is and what standards of, and they use different standards of quality as well. So that became problematic. On the one hand, this made the accuracy of these tools pliable to non-certified variables, which was something, of course, that accreditation trade associations were very dissatisfied about, as it substituted objective standards and professional expertise with a subjective customer experiments. So that was on the one hand. On the other hand, local contractors, the installation firms, the installation companies were quite dissatisfied about being at the mercy, as they said, of consumers' subjective reviews. And furthermore, if the startup would withdraw the customer review system out of their digital platform, it would raise the question what actually the additional value of the platform in itself would be, because having lists of certified contractors, they exist everywhere on the internet, so that's not really that special. So the startup tried to it met with difficulties in aligning interests among supply chain holders, and the frail relations affected their chance to continue winning municipal and regional procurements and thus secure their funding to continue their work. So the startup continued to tinker with this, but my fieldwork ended at some point. But when I left the field, they had not found a suitable solution actually for this issue, and they were continuing to tinker with this. So to conclude, I hope I have shown how, for instance, this particular judgment device, this customer journey, which was instantiated in embedded economic exchanges, how that customer journey eventually failed to stabilize into a business case that could then be upscaled and could actually uphold non-embedded economic exchanges. For such stabilization to have happened, an alignment of interests, an alignment of ways of working, an alignment of skills between the various actors involved would have been necessary. So I think my claim would be that sustaining or maintaining social material arrangements requires continuous monitoring, tinkering and coordination of relationships among supply chain stakeholders by these intermediary startups. So relevant supply chain actors protect their own interests, of course, which makes it difficult for these startups to develop economically valuable products to consumers. And hence, market-driven innovation came, it was experimented with, but it hardly sustained. However, I think the issue of maintenance offers an exceptional field for furthering your understanding on whether and how market instruments can meet societal objectives for climate mitigation, which is the biggest public issue of our time and arguably the biggest market opportunity as well, which Steve has already said a bit about as well. So Calon argues that markets are not well equipped actually to the production of public goods or to contributing to public issues. And I quote, "No one, not even the best specialist, can be entirely sure in advance of the organizational forms and the material agencement needed to establish a market's functioning." And that functioning is, of course, the ongoing work of attempting to maintain continuity of these non-embedded economic exchanges. So what is designed, what is tested, what is evaluated are actually these social material arrangements that combine material and procedural elements and which are very key ingredients of the market devices as I have tried to show in this presentation. So in line with Calon's inspiring call on civilizing markets, I propose that perhaps those sociologists and STS scholars who are interested in evaluation processes and markets, that we start that task by starting with a perhaps more modest and empirical intervention by studying carrying markets. And that implies making the routine, the mundane issues of market maintenance actually our focus and giving these the empirical scrutiny and attention they often lack, but they very much deserve. So in doing so, I propose to deepen Kalishka and Calon's research agenda for the study of markets with recent feminist-inspired studies within STS. Think of the work of Annemarie Mol, the work of David Pontil, Jérôme Denis, which emphasizes the continuous labor of repair and maintenance, which is actually very necessary to enact and very much to sustain, to maintain a stable socio-material ordering. So in doing so, I would argue, we can take up Calon's call on how to better care for markets and the process of valuing, of course, that comes with it. In an era of uncertainty and climate change, in which the time to constantly innovate and start anew is no longer a given. And that is it. Thank you very much.